Almost 5,000 years ago, humanity was brought to its knees by Erebos, a being known as the genesis of evil. To rid the world of this darkness, four great heroes united. In the end, all of them perished in battle, leaving only one man standing, Kyle, the last hero, who represented the human side. Thanks to his friend's sacrifices, Kyle defeated the incarnation of evil and saved humanity. But that was 5,000 years ago. In the present day, history tells a completely different story, a tale where Kyle is completely erased from the records. Everyone is taught that it was Linus's sacrifice that brought about the defeat of Erebos, the genesis of evil. This has gone unquestioned until now. The real twist comes when Kyle, reborn in this era, learns of the tale of Erebos' defeat and realizes his name is nowhere to be found. We follow the story of reborn Kyle, who, after discovering his absence from history, enrolls at Lumine Academy, the hero academy that houses the hero record. He is determined to reclaim his rightful place in the world. Years have passed since the reincarnation of the hero Kyle, and now the scene is set at the Royal School of Dalan. Inside the classroom, the teacher stands before the students and reminds them of the current era they are living in, known as the Age of Heroes. It has been 5,000 years since the hero record first appeared in the world, and the lower world has undergone many changes during that time. For example, the Royal School of Dalan has been chosen to host this year's Lumine entrance examination. The teacher is filled with excitement, confident that among the students, some have the potential to become true heroes. He believes that some will pass the entrance exam and one day have their names written in the hero record. Because of this, he urges everyone to pay attention during the lecture. However, not everyone shares the teacher's enthusiasm. One particular student, seated in the last row, appears completely uninterested and is instead catching some Z's. This student, of course, is Leo. The teacher is frustrated by his lack of attention and reasons that if Leo isn't paying attention, it must mean he already knows the material and sees no need for instruction. To challenge him, the teacher asks Leo to explain the ritual from 5,000 years ago that one had to undergo in order to earn the title of a hero. Leo finally stands up from his seat and responds to the teacher's question in the most casual way possible. He simply states that if someone made a name for themselves, people would just start worshipping them on their own. By the way, Leo's full name is Leo Plav, a 15-year-old from the prestigious house of Plav. It goes without saying that the teacher is clearly disappointed by Leo's half-hearted answer. So, he turns to the class and asks if anyone else would like to volunteer a more detailed response. One of the brighter students eagerly raises their hand and offers an explanation. This student explains that in ancient times, there was no direct way to gain the gods' recognition. Instead, only holy rituals were used to choose who would be considered a hero. A prime example of such a ritual is the ritual of blood. The teacher is thoroughly impressed by the depth of the answer and is certain that this student, Golivan, will become the greatest magical genius in the kingdom. Golivan hails from House Trotun. Anyhow, it seems like Leo is getting pretty tired of the usual nonsense he deals with on a daily basis. From his perspective, meeting the gods was nothing special back in the day, as it was just a part of life. After all, the gods once gifted the lower world with a miracle to celebrate the great heroes who fought against Erebos, the hero record. But for some reason, Leo can't understand why he's the only one who's been completely erased from history. No one seems to acknowledge his role, and it's starting to get to him. Later, the students gather around the windows, all eager to catch a glimpse of the Zinger clan as they march through the corridor. At the front of the group, there's a lady, Celia Zinger, a name that piques everyone's interest and curiosity. An announcement rings out, requesting all students to gather in the auditorium for a mandatory assembly as the Zinger clan is visiting the school. As Leo begins to leave the classroom, Golivan calls out to him. He asks if Leo plans to try and get noticed by the Zingers. But Leo, uninterested, simply shrugs it off. He has no desire to get involved in whatever spectacle this is, he just wants to go home. This nonchalance only fuels Gullivan's irritation. He can't believe how casually Leo is walking away from such an opportunity. In an attempt to sound just as cool as Leo, Gullivan explains that, although he himself doesn't care about the zingers either, he is definitely going to check out Celia, especially since he considers her a fellow rival. However, it's obvious this is just a lie. He is clearly looking forward to being recognized by the zingers. Later, we find Leo in the dojo, visibly worn out after tirelessly swinging his practice stick. He eventually grabs his sword and heads for the exit. Just as he steps outside, he is ambushed by a woman who charges at him with the force of a runaway train. Leo, though startled, manages to block her strike with his blade. It's clear from their interaction that this isn't the first time these two have crossed swords. They share a history where such exchanges are far from uncommon. The lady is looking forward to sparring with him after so long and declares that this match will be his final test before granting him permission to attend Lumine Academy. As it turns out, this formidable woman is none other than his mother. In an instant, she lunges at him again, and their swords clash once more. While Leo is already struggling to keep up, his mother casually remarks that she hasn't even used a fraction of her full strength. Blow after blow, the spar continues, each strike growing more intense than the last. Eventually, however, Leo turns the tide. His sheer skill and mastery of swordsmanship allow him to overpower his mother, forcing her to surrender. The woman is left in awe of her son's talent and growth. She stands up, and in a softer tone, asks why he is so determined to attend Lumine Academy. Before the story moves forward, a little context about the academy is necessary. Lumine Academy, the Human Hero Academy, is one of the 4 prestigious institutions among the races that house the hero record. Leo strongly suspects that Lumine Academy is the most likely place to uncover remnants of his past life as hero Kyle. With such a compelling reason, it's no surprise that Leo is unwavering in his determination to join the academy. Leo's mother then reminds him that the members of the Zinger clan are currently visiting Delon and will be staying at the Plav mansion. Though she isn't thrilled about having them in their home, she has a request to make. She intends to speak with Zeiss, the vice-patriarch of the Zinger clan, hoping that he might be willing to teach Leo the Zinger aura technique. She believes that with the technique, Leo will become strong enough to be admitted to Lumine Academy next year. However, what she doesn't know is that her son is determined to be admitted this year. He has no patience to wait another whole year to achieve his goals. Sometime later, we find ourselves at the Plav mansion, where Celia Zinger is being escorted into the grounds. As soon as she steps out of the carriage, she can't help but wonder why her uncle chose to stay in a place like this when he could have easily rented an entire hotel for himself. As we know already, Celia is a 15-year-old sword princess hailing from the Zinger clan. Her primary focus is on the Lumine entrance exam, and she's skeptical about how a small family like the Plavs could possibly help her prepare for it. At that moment, Celia's uncle calls out to her. He is none other than Zeiss Zinger, the vice-patriarch of the Zinger clan. He teasingly asks if she isn't at least a little curious to meet Leo, the very boy who boldly declared he wasn't interested in the Zinger clan. Celia remains nonchalant and remarks that if Leo is just a hopeful knight who can't even use aura yet, then in her opinion, he's probably not all that impressive. However, Zeiss doesn't share her sentiment. On the contrary, he seems quite optimistic about Leo's potential. Once they enter the mansion, Zeiss steps forward to greet the heads of the Plav household. He exchanges respectful words with Dade Plav, the patriarch, and Reina Plav, his wife. Both hosts graciously return the gesture, welcoming the Zingers to their home with equal honor. Zeiss then formally introduces Celia to Reina and Dade. The young lady promptly reciprocates their hospitality with a courteous introduction of her own, expressing her gratitude for being hosted in their home. Reina steps forward and takes a moment to observe Celia. She notes that Celia closely resembles her father and uncle, both in appearance and behavior. Celia, in turn, takes note of Reina's striking black hair and red eyes. It doesn't take long for her to realize that Reina is part of deserting her family, which also makes her Celia's aunt. Later, Zeiss and Reina, who share the bond of being brother and sister, sit back and begin catching up. During their conversation, Zeiss mentions their recent visit to the Royal School of Dalan, where they had hoped to catch a glimpse of Leo. However, they were disappointed to find that he had already left the school, as he was uninterested in meeting anyone. Reina apologizes on behalf of her son, acknowledging that his behavior may have seemed disrespectful. Zeiss then curiously questions his sister about Leo, asking what kind of person he is. Reina speaks highly of him, claiming that Leo is unbelievably talented. Her response prompts Zeiss to question whether Leo is truly worthy to inherit deserting her flames. Reina's praise of her son continues, but she makes it clear that she's not simply speaking as a proud mother. Leo genuinely has the talent and potential to be worthy of deserting her legacy. Zeiss is quite intrigued to hear this. While he trusts her judgment, he feels compelled to test Leo himself before forming a final opinion. Later, we meet Leo sitting quietly, trying to concentrate. After finishing his little ritual, he declares to himself that he has finally achieved a vessel capable of holding everything he needs. Leo reflects on why he hadn't yet learned aura until now. The truth lies in the unique nature of his body. Accepting aura too early would cause it to naturally adapt and specialize in alignment with the aura. This would limit his ability to accumulate mana and soul energy, two essential components of his long-term plan. In his past life, he had witnessed the danger of uncontrolled power. If he had fully harnessed the abilities and essence of his fallen comrades, he wouldn't have left behind a seedling of disaster. To avoid repeating history, Leo is determined to achieve perfect control in this life. So the first step in his journey is mastering aura, but he intends to do so on his own terms. Before he can delve further into his thoughts, a familiar voice calls out to him, pulling his attention away. As he turns over, he spots Celia Zinger with a confident smirk. She comments on how he finally seems to have grasped the basics of training. While her words carry a hint of sarcasm, she goes on to offer him guidance in swordsmanship if he's up for the challenge. Meanwhile, Leo has no idea who the hell she is. She introduces herself as Celia Zinger, the world-class sword princess. With the introductions out of the way, Leo gets straight to the point. Although he's feeling quite honored that she thought about him, he has no intention of receiving any guidance from someone he considers less skilled than himself. Needless to say, the girl's annoyed to hear this, as his remark comes off like he's trying to suggest that he's stronger than her. Leo clarifies that, in a death match, she's probably stronger, since he can't use aura himself. However, sparring with only swordsmanship is a whole different game, and he's certain he can handle her like it's no big deal. Celia feels challenged by his statement. She looks around and grabs one of the swords from the plethora available. She wants to prove that what he has nothing more than misplaced confidence, and she plans to teach him that by defeating him in a duel. In her mind, even if Leo learns aura, there's no way he could possibly defeat her. She just wants to teach him a harsh lesson in reality. She further claims that if she wins during her week-long stay here, he will become her servant. Leo isn't fazed at all by the term she's thrown at him and, in response, he asks, "What if I win?" To make things fair, she throws back that if he wins, she'll become his servant instead. Now that the bet is set, Leo grabs a practice sword and dives right into the sparring session. He tries to strike her with his unexpectedly impressive speed, but she easily outmaneuvers him. However, she can't help but notice that his speed is actually quite concerningly good. Still, Celia is sure that this won't be enough for him to win, so they both charge at each other again. Leo lands a brutally heavy strike, and the sheer strength behind it overwhelms her. She quickly steps back as the force becomes too much to handle, and when Leo's sword collides with the ground, it shatters instantly. But he doesn't stop there, he charges at her once more. The once arrogant lady is already starting to regret challenging Leo and is certain she can't possibly block the incoming strike. So, she braces herself and takes the hit head-on. To everyone's surprise, she doesn't take any damage because she had used aura armor in the last moments. Even though this wasn't part of the spar, as it was purely meant to be about swordsmanship, this arrogant piece of work doesn't own up to the fact that she couldn't dodge his attack. Instead, she makes an excuse, claiming it was just a reflex. But Leo declares that he's already won, and it doesn't matter. Of course, this leaves her in disbelief, as she's not ready to hand him the victory that easily. Leo had expected this, so he throws off the magic weight bracelets he was wearing to hold off his physical strength. In the next hit, he literally shatters her barrier, leaving the girl completely gobsmacked. Meanwhile, Leo shows her no mercy and gives her a taste of his full strength. Later in the courtyard, as Leo walks around, he stumbles across his mother, who promptly introduces him to his uncle, Zeiss. Leo quickly bows his head to pay his respects, and Zeiss reciprocates, introducing himself as well. The two gentlemen then shake hands. His mother then asks if he's met Celia yet, to which Leo recalls how she had fainted after their battle due to fear. Before Leo can explain to her what happened, a knight approaches Zeiss with a report regarding the lady. Zeiss is fascinated to learn that Leo defeated Celia with a body that hasn't even learned aura yet. He personally expresses his admiration for Leo, saying it's nothing short of impressive, but Leo claims that she just underestimated him. Zeiss then questions what Celia lost in a bet, to which Leo happily responds that the loser was supposed to become the servant of the winner. So, basically, Celia is his maid for the next week. As much as Zeiss dislikes this idea, he understands the importance of keeping one's word. Still, he makes it clear that Celia is from the Zinger house, so he can't possibly order her around to do maid's work. He hopes Leo will rescind the promise, and in exchange, he offers to personally reward our boy with something far more valuable. But Leo refuses the offer right away. He lets his uncle know that this was a wager between Celia and him, and as long as she retains the Zinger name, she needs to take responsibility. The uncle then questions him if he's also willing to let go of the opportunity to learn the Zinger aura breathing method. Leo once again responds with a sassy jab. He believes that an aura breathing method, given with the objective of preventing a niece from being humiliated, holds no value in being learned. Since Zeiss has no other way around this predicament, he decides to get a little offensive. He questions the boy directly, reminding him that he just declared he would use the direct lineage of the Zingers as a servant and that the Zerger or a breathing method is worthless. Leo remains unhinged and unafraid of the consequences about to surround him, simply claiming that what his uncle just said is indeed true. Out of the blue, Zay's mood softens, and he politely questions our boy if he does not think that what he just declared is impudent and impolite. Leo once again makes it clear that he had no intention of insulting the Zingers. He claims that if he were being given the aura breathing technique as a reward for defeating Celia, he would have gladly accepted it. However, he has no intention of accepting it as a bribe just so she can escape the consequences of her loss. You see, if his uncle doesn't want to recognize Celia's defeat, it means they believe she is better than him and simply lost the duel by mistake. But Leo makes it clear that even if Celia had sparred against him in earnest, he still would have won. This leaves Leo's mother even prouder, while her brother is equally fascinated to hear such judgment from Leo. The fact that this kid rejected the offer because he didn't like the way his uncle behaved only highlights how outstanding a child he is. He wishes that a child like this were a Zinger. Zay then gestures to his knights and orders them to send Celia to the maid's quarters. He turns to Leo and grants him the right to address his uncle without any honorary titles. After that short conversation, Leo parts ways, and Zay turns to his elder sister, proud, telling her that once he gets back home, he'll make sure to convince their elder brother so they can teach Leo the mighty technique, Phoenix Breath. Later, the scene switches to Leo's room. The first thing we notice is Celia's totally embarrassed face. She's going bonkers with embarrassment as she claims herself as Celia the maid who will be in charge of Leo for the next week. Leo is literally enjoying the heck out of it when she calls him like that. Who could have imagined that her usual fancy style would actually suit plain maid clothes so well? And this dress just looks like fire. Honor. Celia seems annoyed by the way he's praising her as she knows all too well how beautiful she is. Leo apologizes, as he wasn't intending to offend her with his words, but he admits that he had a certain friend who praised beauty way too much and that habit must have rubbed off on him. He recalls how that particular friend used to say that the beauty of eternity is unparalleled, and if peace ever returns to this world, he'll spend the rest of his life spreading beauty to everyone. The friend he's talking about is none other than the dwarven master smith, Dweno. Suddenly, Celia's eyes take note of the book Leo is reading, and she curiously inquires about it. Leo explains that he used to read it a lot when he was younger. It's the book known as The Great Hero of the Beginning. Celia remembers how she used to read this book when she was literally 5 years old. Seeing how much he likes this particular book, she walks over to the bookshelf and pulls out another one, mentioning that there are a lot of books about Kyle. In response, Leo claims that many of the great achievements in history are difficult to attribute to any single hero. He believes that many of these accomplishments, which are attributed to one hero, might actually be the result of the collective actions of multiple heroes over time. In short, he is trying to imply that Kyle's achievements have also been attributed to other heroes. But Celia dismisses such thoughts, claiming that Kyle was probably a scammer who tried to take credit for the achievements of the great heroes. At least that's what most people think, and of course, she's one of them. Naturally, Leo isn't thrilled to hear that all people consider Kyle a phony scammer with zero contributions to the world. He then pushes aside all the talk about Kyle and decides it's time for breakfast before starting his training. Celia quickly gets into character and just like any maid would, she humbly asks her young master if she could train with him. Outwardly, she's all pleasant and polite, but inwardly, the girl feels a lot of toxic thoughts toward him. Still, she has to play along. Celia wants to uncover the secret behind Leo's strength. Leo promptly starts walking toward the training hall to fulfill her request. A while later, we see an exhausted Celia on her knees, breathing heavily after this first round. Leo gives his feedback. During fighting, when her stamina reaches its limit, her reaction speed slows, and more gaps appear between her movements. When that happens, she leaves herself open, and the same happens right now. But Celia isn't sure that abusing her body like this is actually helpful for training. Leo responds positively because he thinks that young people these days are just too weak. You see, compared to the past, AA techniques have developed considerably, and that must be why people stopped caring about body training as much. Aura allows one to enhance their body strength, and if you train your body, the aura is also enhanced as well. The girl simply doesn't want to be labeled as weak, so she gathers her guts and stands up for another round. Before diving in, she warns Leo that he better stop underestimating her, but her reckless charge backfires when Leo just flings her away with one swing, and she crashes to the ground. At this point, she's just frustrated after taking one humiliating defeat after another. Leo then offers her a bracelet, which she quickly extends her hands to grab. Little does she know, this bracelet is imbued with weight magic, making it insanely heavy. Meanwhile, Leo flashes a sinister smile as he reveals his sinister intentions. He apparently plans to make her train while she wears this bracelet. From this point onward, the next day, we see Zeiss also watching them both train. After seeing how much Celia is struggling, the uncle is sure this is going to be a good experience for her before going to Lumen. It might be good for her pride to crumble at least once. He then calls out to Leo and gives him some good news, that he's thinking of asking the Patriarch to allow him to inherit Phoenix Breath. The mention of Phoenix Breath catches Leo off guard because, as far as he can recall, that's basically the Zerger family's origin for the aura technique. He's heard that only people who are recognized within the family can inherit it. Celia also raises her opinion that her father won't allow it that easily, but it looks like Zeiss has figured this much out already. He proposes a condition to Leo: if he passes the Lumen entrance examination, he'll be allowed to learn the technique. Of course, this remark doesn't sit well with Celia, because in her eyes, Leo is just a brat who can't even use aura, and since the Lumen entrance examination consists of actual fights, it's going to be very dangerous for him. Well, Leo doesn't shy away from claiming that he doesn't have any real fight experience, but we all know that's only the case if he doesn't take his previous life into account. Zeiss awaits Leo's opinion, to which our boy quickly agrees, as long as his parents are okay with this decision. A week passes by, and the day of the Lumen entrance examination finally arrives. When they see the prominent figure of Celia Zinger among the participating students, everyone is in awe. Meanwhile, Celia throws a jab at Leo, asking if he's feeling nervous. It looks like, after spending so much time being a personal maid, Celia has lost herself in the character because she's still referring to Leo with the master title. As they stand there, Gon's unmistakable voice catches their attention. He's actually here to see Celia but is a little shocked when he notices that Leo is with her. This piece of work throws shade at Leo, believing that our boy doesn't belong here since he doesn't even know how to use aura. At the same time, he tries to greet Celia politely, however, the poor guy is totally ignored by the duo, as though he doesn't even exist. He gets awkward and tries to remind Celia that he's Gullivan Trotun and he had greeted her when they met last time. But to Gullivan's dismay, Celia doesn't recognize his name and quickly grabs Leo's hand in order to leave the scene. Suddenly they're called by someone else. It's actually two siblings gracing the scene. The taller one is Abad Leland, hailing from the Lon family, and he's 16 years old. The shorter girl beside him is Chelsea Leland, 14 years old, and she shares the same family name. While Celia seems to recognize these two, Leo has no clue who they are. Celia explains that they are the Luan siblings, hailing from the same heroic lineage of the Lorden Empire, the children of the Luan family. Celia is particularly fired up because she's not thrilled to see these two. She warns Leo that the Leland siblings will be partaking in the exam with them, so they absolutely can't lose to them. She definitely can't have the Zinger clan lose to the Lon family, but this isn't really Leo's concern. After all, he's from the Plav family, not the Zinger family. Anyway, when the two greet Celia, she doesn't have any reason to reciprocate their greetings and simply returns the gesture. She also makes sure to introduce Leo as being from House Plav, a noble family within the kingdom of Dad. Hearing that Leo doesn't have a fancy title attached to his name, Abad Leland dismisses him as insignificant. The two siblings promptly twirl around and proceed to walk away, throwing out the warning that they'll surely be in the top spot. It goes without saying that Celia doesn't like the Lon siblings' guts and is looking forward to thoroughly crushing them in the upcoming trials. Suddenly, someone representing Lumen Academy steps onto the podium, immediately commanding the attention of everyone present. The man introduces himself as Ali Zarin, a professor at Lumen Academy. While Celia's expression shifts to one of shock upon seeing this prestigious figure, Leo seems unimpressed, mostly because he has no idea who this guy is. Celia is visibly annoyed that Leo doesn't even recognize someone of AL's stature. She takes the opportunity to educate him, explaining that Ali Zarin is listed in the hero record, a distinguished list of individuals considered heroes of the current era. Leo takes a moment to observe the professor carefully and notices something peculiar: immense mana concentrated in AL's left eye. Professor Ali then proceeds to address the gathered students. He begins to explain the format of the entrance examination. According to Al-B, the trials involve two main components: one-on-one combat and monster subjugation. Traditionally, participants would take turns completing these tasks. However, Al-B immediately clarifies that he finds such methods tedious and wastes no time proving his point. In an instant, he burns the sheet of paper he was holding as if discarding the conventional exam structure entirely. Up next, he pulls out a thick, ancient-looking book. As he opens it, the teacher summons forth the first chapter, titled Prologue, The Wild Forest. In that moment, a massive enchantment circle begins to glow under the feet of the entire student body. The scene is set, and no one has a clue what the professor intends to do next. But one thing becomes crystal clear: Ali Zarin despises inefficiency. He declares that he's combining all the trials into one seamless challenge, and they will move forward at once. To understand what's happening, we learn that the hero record isn't just a historical record. Its real value lies in its ability to manifest the hero's world, which contains the experiences of past heroes. By accessing this world, one can inherit the power of a previous hero. Simply put, it's almost like a hero training system. All the students have been transported into this hero's world, known as the Wild Forest. The professor announces that their one and only objective is to survive. Whether they join forces or eliminate each other, they can do whatever it takes to stay alive. Those who want to quit can break the orb they're holding and return. That's all there is to it. After looking around for a few minutes, it doesn't take Leo long to recognize the place. It looks exactly as he remembers. You see, this used to be an elven forest before it was taken over by the Witch Queen, Salota. Meanwhile, some students just want to go back, especially since they think that this place is nothing more than an illusion. But our boy doesn't share the same thoughts. As far as he can tell, while this world might have come from, the examiner mentions that everything that is going to happen here will be real. The deadly hazards here could seriously kill someone if they're not careful enough. With the mention of danger, Leo notices someone's presence and is soon attacked by an arrow that literally shatters the ground beneath him upon impact. Thankfully, he's safe, but when he looks in the direction of the arrow's source, he sees it's the girl from the Lawn family, Chelsea. It looks like she has mistaken him for a member of the Zinger family, and because of that, she's determined to eliminate him. But Leo quickly makes it clear that he's a member of the Plav family. Chelsea, however, becomes more aggressive, thinking he's lying since she had seen him with Celia earlier. Without hesitation, she casts her magic, Windle. Leo seems impressed as he watches her chant a spell that didn't exist in his past life, but he also notices that the basics of this spell are not much different. Meanwhile, Chelsea is frustrated by how calm and composed he is while facing her. To shake him up, she unleashes her impressive ability at him, but Leo just effortlessly blocks it with a single swing of his sword. The mana blade she sent at him simply falls away. This leaves Chelsea unsettled. From what she can tell, he didn't even use aura, so how has he blocked her attack so easily? Our boy just rubs salt in her bruised ego by casually claiming that her attack was too simple. He invites her to form an alliance, as it will be beneficial for her. He reminds her that the one who survives the longest earns the most points, so as a sorceress, she should at least try to pass one test before getting eliminated. I don't even have to tell you what her response is. She quickly fires back and boasts that she is not your typical sorceress. She's a battle mage. She's offended by his comment where he called her attack simple. Feeling the sting of his words, she channels all her power to crush him on the spot just so she can prove she's not the weakling he thinks she is. But all of her attacks end up being pointless, as Leo isn't even standing in the direction where the blades are heading. What's worse is that she can't feel a trace of mana anywhere, so she can't even spot him where he is. But her eyes soon meet Leo, who's right in front of her with his fist balled up. We don't get to see if that punch lands on her terrified face or not, but one thing is clear, her knees lose the strength to hold her up, which is a clear sign of victory for our boy. Leo, however, once again reminds her that the offer to join forces is still on the table if she changes her mind. Before we can hear her response, the scene cuts to the faculty of Lumine Academy, who are watching the show through a digital window. They're thrilled to see that the battle is finally heating up. Back to Chelsea, it looks like she's getting no mercy. Leo has tied her to a tree trunk, and the look on his face clearly shows he's not exactly having good intentions for this poor girl. He also makes sure to start a small bonfire since the night is settling in. The fire intensifies, and flames begin to crawl toward the damsel in distress tied to the log. Seeing the flames causes her to panic, but she could avoid this fate if she agrees to cooperate with Leo. But, well, this lady is as stubborn as they come and refuses outright. She makes it clear she needs no one to ally with her except for her brother. She tries to use some wind magic, but her efforts prove futile because Leo has already placed a skill that restricts magic. Though inwardly, he reveals to us that he doesn't have enough mana to maintain this skill, so it won't last much longer. The lady finally relents, thinking she doesn't need magic to get herself out of this mess. But that's exactly why Leo is here. He's more than ready to keep a close watch to make sure she's not trying anything tricky. Without hesitation, he cranks up the intensity of the fire, and soon the flames begin to catch on her, even her clothes start to burn. Well, that's the last straw. The girl finally concedes and agrees to form an alliance with him. But of course, a few words aren't enough to convince Leo. He tells her to swear on her family's name. The girl quickly fulfills his demand, swearing on the Lan family name that she will cooperate. Finally, Leo releases the ropes that were holding her, but before she can fall into the scorching flames, he cradles her in his arms. The scene transitions back to the teachers, who are diligently watching the students perform. So far, Albi Ziran has not seen a student who can live up to his standards. To think that most of the students chose to compete and fight each other seems utterly foolish and ridiculous. The only ones showing real strength to the point where it's noticeable are Celia Zinger and Abad Leland, who are working closely together. At least this gives him some reassurance that there is still hope for the students. Then his attention shifts to Leo and Chelsea, who are also working together. His eyes are particularly fixated on Leo. Although the fire stunt he pulled on Chelsea was pretty immature, getting Chelsea Leland to cooperate at least earns him a passing grade in AL's eyes, especially since he doesn't possess the power or grace of Celia and Abad. However, it seems this is where the teacher is utterly wrong, because our boy took down Celia without even breaking a sweat. Regardless, Al-Ziran considers Leo an unexpected dark horse in this competition. After slashing down a few monsters in their path, both Leo and Chelsea decide to move forward. It seems that Chelsea has finally started to realize that forming an alliance with Leo wasn't such a terrible decision after all. She then asks him what aura he's using, as she hasn't detected any mana from it. To her surprise, Leo casually drops the bombshell that he doesn't even know how to use aura. Unsurprisingly, this shocks and surprises her. While they're going back and forth, a monster is lurking behind the bushes, keeping a close eye on them. But Chelsea quickly notices the presence of the monster and fires at it instantly. Not going to lie, this attack was way too overpowered for such a feeble monster. Even Leo admits that she does indeed have impressive strength, but the way she uses it is completely wrong. Suddenly, Leo senses something strange and tells her to halt her movements. He's noticed something odd in the sand. When he crouches down, he notices dry ground and decay, dead bodies of people. Out of the blue, an explosion erupts, but Leo quickly jumps away while carrying Chelsea in his arms. The sneaky bastards who had set the trap finally emerge from hiding. It turns out it's Gulan and his partners. We all know that he's got beef with Leo, so it's no surprise he's here to specifically target him. He commands one of his companions to charge, and the poor fool obeys without hesitation. Unfortunately for him, he's greeted with a jaw-breaking blow from Leo, leaving him sprawled out on the ground. Leo stands tall, exuding total Giga-Chad energy, and calmly tells Chelsea to just watch his back for a moment. Chelsea is startled, seeing how effortlessly he has saved her twice in a row, but she quickly gets up and positions herself behind him, ready to face the remaining goons. Meanwhile, Gulan does what he does best, runs for his pathetic life. He abandons his crew, desperately trying to put as much distance between himself and Leo as possible. The only thought crossing through his mind is to find a partner fast. As fate would have it, Celia spots him from a distance. Instead of chasing him, she calmly walks into the direction he's running from. When they finally arrive at the scene, what they see is jaw-dropping. The area is littered with monster corpses and the bodies of students who had tried and failed to take them on. Naturally, Chelsea lights up at finally being reunited with her brother. Meanwhile, Celia throws shade at Leo, demanding to know what in the world he's doing with Chelsea. Leo proudly claims that it was his decision to form an alliance with her. Celia, however, finds it hard to believe. She would rather believe him if he had claimed to see a cockroach doing backflips than believe he managed to convince Chelsea, the stubborn goat, to form an alliance. To this, Leo casually and sinisterly claims that he simply convinced her. His wicked grin unsettles even Celia, who begins to wonder what exactly he might have done to convince her. Anyhow, our boy moves to help the students he just knocked out back to their feet. Seeing this, Abad questions why Leo is helping their opponents. Our boy quickly clears the air, stating that there's no need to fight among themselves. Instead, sticking together to defeat the challenges of this world is a much better idea than fighting selfishly. Since Abad and the others seem clueless about what challenge he's talking about, Leo draws their attention to the nearby decayed corpses, hinting at a bigger issue. Seeing the corpses on the ground, one of the students comments that it looks like their moisture has been drained. Leo clarifies that this isn't the only odd thing here. He points out how this place, out of nowhere, seems completely devoid of any monster presence. It's as if the monsters are afraid of something, like a high-tier monster has appeared and scared off the others in the forest. As the pieces start falling into place, Abad finally understands what's going on. As far as his understanding goes, Hero Al's first feat was defeating a high-tier monster. Just then, they all hear a massive roar in the distance, the sound of something close and ominous stirring deep in the forest. The roar fills the air with tension, a clear sign that the monster has finally decided to reveal itself. Meanwhile, Gulan stumbles through the forest alone, holding a torch in his hand. He looks terrified, and despite being deep in trouble, his feeble mind is more focused on getting revenge on our boy than on survival. Suddenly, he notices a corpse at his feet, and there is something behind this veil of darkness that causes him to trip and fall. The thing he saw in the dark is a giant monster. The monster looks like a giant spider, and it seems to be quite hungry. By now, it's clear that Gulan is as good as dead. Let's explore what's happening with Professor Albi and the students. It turns out that a staggering 500 students all failed the exam. The real problem is the fact that the selection process requires the selection of at least 100 students, but there are only 50 of them still left in the test. Instead of forcing himself to pick, the professor believes that he's only going to select suitable candidates that meet his expectations. After all, the headmaster put him in charge knowing that he would pick the cream of the crop. Albi is a believer in discovering heroes in the time of great difficulty, and he has gained an interest in Leo Pla, a dark horse with unexpected talent. The question is, will this dark horse be able to overcome the harsh exam? Going back to the scene of the students in the exam, they're fast on their feet and having trouble navigating because of the dark atmosphere. Celia illuminates her blade and claims that she's seen something up ahead. Her sword's red shimmer reveals the face of the terrifying spider, who is currently devouring its prey. It strikes fear into their hearts as Abad rushes to use a mage spell to take down the threat. However, Leo is quick to stop him and advises Gulan to break the crystal. Of course, Gulan is out here becoming breakfast between the spider's teeth, so he can hardly move. He decides to smash the blue crystal, sending a wave of electricity inside the creature's mouth. With their preparations ready, Abad charges his Wind Fong spell and releases it upon the menacing creature. His attack manages to wound the monster but fails to deal the killing blow. The four of them are horrified to comprehend the level of threat they're up against. This creepy crawly is the spider princess Tarantula, and she's not cute. One student foolishly lunges in with the hopes of a melee attack. He's humbled too soon with a single strike to his body, sending him crashing to the ground. Next up is Celia, who arrogantly assumes that she'll end the fight with a single attack. Activating the prominent spell, she releases a sharp yet destructive beam of red, piercing the creature's body and sending it waves of pain. However, the spider is as durable as a tank and quickly recovers, making Celia's approach useless as well. Abad uses this moment to talk her down, claiming that a mage and a knight's destructive power is incomparable. He releases a wind spell, Rafali, to slice the spider in an endless spiral. However, by the end of his attack, he's terrified to find the creature alive and well, staring him down. Sensing that her brother is in imminent danger, Chelsea casts her windbreaker magic to help him out. Still, Abad suffers a cut from the spider's claw, though his sister's attack cushions the blow with her magic. She comes to check on him after he barely made it without losing an arm. They've tried everything against this monster, but its immensely fast regeneration proves them useless. Despair is setting in their hearts as the Queen Tarantula approaches to finish them off. Leo comes in and explains that this creature is the daughter of Salat. She was a deadly monster within Arosa's army, responsible for incinerating the elf forest. What's more, Leo reflects that the mana he detected in Professor Ael's left eye contained signs of the Fairy King's mana. The tarantula ruled over the cursed wild forest. Not only did she annihilate the forest belonging to the elves, but she also ate the most reliable comrade of the Fairy King, who rebelled against her at the time. Leo believed that Luna responsibly defeated the tarantula, but it turns out the reality is different. The tarantula survived thanks to devouring the Fairy King's assistant, who possessed the source of infinite life energy in the form of an invaluable artifact, none other than the Ring of Life. Abad is as stubborn as a log and thinks that it's only right for him to take out the monster if it's a part of the exam. Both he and Celia decide to unleash consecutive strikes in the hopes of defeating the creature on their own. The tarantula endures their wrath, but Leo thinks it's all useless since the creature will just keep regenerating to no end. In fact, they'll be the ones to run out of mana first. In a last-ditch effort, Celia asks for his opinion on how they should handle the monster. Leo explains that it requires the teamwork of two, but his suggestion is immediately met with disagreement by Abad, who is selfishly hoping to overcome the monster on his own. The same goes for Celia too. With both of them acting like children, our boy comes in and gives them a dear reality check. If they don't work together to defeat the monster, they will all fail. His words finally get through. Abad amuses the possibility of them working together and thinks that it will still consume some time to initiate a joint strike that kills the creature in one go. The thing is, since no one apart from them can stall the monster, it's going to be hard. Deciding to step up and contribute in their struggle, Leo expresses that he can buy some time for them. Celia thinks he's become a nutcase and reminds our boy that he can't even use aura yet. Leo confirms that he can hold out no longer than 5 minutes for them in his state. The magician Abad is afraid that their coordinated attack might still fail by then. However, Leo is absolutely certain that it will work and picks up a weapon from the ground. He adds that both fire and wind elements share a great affinity with each other, so it will be sufficient despite their differences. The Sword Princess and the Great Magician become allies, while Leo looks up at the ugly spider as a good challenge and a reminder of his past life. The fight begins, with our boy impressively slicing off the creature's limb with a sharp swing, shocking the other two students. He goes on to annihilate the creature's face and finds himself satisfied to find the monster of Tardos. Exploring a flashback of the past, we see an elven child running in frightening tears. Unfortunately, the monster Tardos captures him with its webbing, leaving the boy completely immobilized in the creature's net. There's just no chance of escaping anymore. The spider quickly arrives, ready to consume him. Him whole, the boy begs for his mother's help and awaits impending doom until one radiant being appears as a savior. A being of light stops the creature from hurting the child. Luna, infuriated with the creature wreaking havoc on her homeland and going as far as devouring the contractor responsible for being the right-hand man of the elven forest, releases a light attack aimed at the toothy creature. Her magic attack envelopes Tardos, caging the creature before sending down a column of thunder. Luna wasn't expecting Arosa's army to have come and conquered the elven forest as well. At the time, Leo, in his original life, became responsible for freeing the kid and helping him escape the webbing net. Now, back to the current scene, Leo stands with an axe in hand, ready to buy time for his teammates. Still, he can't do much without his aura. Requesting Chelsea's help, Leo instructs her to use elemental magic, targeting him with her weapons. He evasively dodges a strike due to his immense speed. Chelsea is concerned that he might get caught up in the attack at this rate, but Leo emphasizes that he'll be fine as long as she hurries up. Chelsea activates her magic, ready to mold any kind of weapon for him. Leo is fine with anything as long as it works. She manifests a weapon for him, while he guesses that she's preparing a scimitar and a bastard sword. With both weapons in hand, Leo unleashes a fury of slashes, cutting down on the spider with each weapon. Breaking Chelsea sends another one in his direction. He catches a dagger and a battle axe. Leo's shocking and overwhelming physical capabilities have stunned Chelsea to the core, so much so that she thinks he's an expert in martial arts. Even Abad can't help but think of him as strong. Still, it's not like he's invincible, as a sharp cut grazes his face. Leo thinks that if he can't even stop a stupid spider here and now, then his friends will never stop mocking him in the afterlife. He ramps up the intensity and cuts down the spider, requesting another weapon. Unfortunately, Chelsea is all out of weapons at her disposal, which comes as a shock to him. Thankfully, however, Celia has already finished preparing her ultimate strike. She unleashes a roaring spiral of fire, incinerating the creature and defeating it at once. The ring of life drops, cleared from its body, and the monster is subjugated at last. Celia drops to the ground, thankful that everything is over now. Still, she can't help but focus on Leo's inhuman performance in holding back Tardos for 5 minutes. Celia tries to praise him, but Chelsea is even faster with her words. She's become his #1 fan and thinks that his performance just now was comparable to the heroes of the legends. Leo doesn't think much of it, but this chick is going crazy for him as she wants to become a battle mage specialist. She pleads to learn from him. Funnily enough, Celia is hoping for Chelsea to receive exclusive training from him, to get a taste of what suffering truly looks like. Anyway, our boy proceeds to grab the Ring of Life, which manifests Prince Sid as a fairy. He rekindles the prince's memory by saying his name. Hearing that, the prince goes back into the ring, accepting Sealed as the fairy king. This is all thanks to Professor Albi stumbling upon the Eye of Mana. The countdown for the testing ground is starting, and clearing the task stage has earned them the reward of the Fairy King's pledge before their transfer. Leo recognizes someone from his past life. Fast forward to Kayan Badian, the principal of the academy, who is reviewing the exam report of the Western Territory. His assistant wonders how many students Albi ended up passing because of his strict requirements. The headmaster is rather surprised to see 40 students coming clean from the exam, which still isn't a high number. The headmaster isn't too disappointed because he thought he'd only see 10 students passing at most. This is still a great achievement. Celia and Abad seem to be the top candidates in his expectations. The headmaster heard that there was someone who was recommended as the representative for the year. It's shocking enough that Albi, of all people, recommended a student. Certain it has to be either the Zinger or Li Lin candidate, but as it turns out, this candidate is someone that no one's heard about before, a name that exceeds both Celia and Abad in performance. We come to Professor Al's side of things, who is sharply assessing the boy's abilities. He recommended the student Leo Plav as the representative of the Night Division. The headmaster expresses shock for the professor to speak highly of this brilliant student. He specifically described this candidate to boast the talent of a hero. Now that the examination is all done and settled, our boy is enjoying a hot sauna all to himself, relishing in its warmth. The reward for clearing the exam is the Fairy King's pledge. Now, when it comes to clearing a hero's living world, there isn't supposed to be a typical reward, but strangely, he was given one as the exception. Leo doesn't understand why and sees his mother standing in front of him. She confronts the boy, questioning if he knows why she was expelled from the House of Zinger. In an effort to rescue an ally, she ended up losing control and unleashed the flames of searing her. But she hasn't come to regret her decision, not even now. Fixating her attention on her only son, she wants the boy's incredible talent to be steered in the right direction. Also, she's most delighted to congratulate him on being accepted into the academy. Stepping foot in the glorious luminous city, the students are requested to collect their belongings before stepping foot outside the gate. Lumia is the centerpiece of the world, and its most prized institution is the Lum Academy. With Leo finally having arrived, his uncle comes to greet the boy and shares his congratulations for passing. Leo wonders what he's doing here and learns that the House of Zerger is currently busy resolving an unending debate that has been going on for at least a month's time. He quizzes the boy, asking if he knows the reason for the conflict. Leo wonders if it has anything to do with the inheritance of the Phoenix breath. His uncle confirms that it's exactly the case, and while his older sister isn't a part of the Zerger clan, Leo is inevitably her son. Then there's the fact that the elders of the clan are highly impressed by the boy's clearance of the Western exam, notorious for being extremely difficult. Leo is handed a special subspace key, which he decides to use at once. By chanting a command, it unlocks access to a special book. His uncle then instructs him to stain the pages of the book with his blood. Leo follows his instructions, biting his thumb and releasing the splattering drops on the page. Now that he's shared his blood, he has access to the information inside the book no one else will be able to know. And while it isn't easy to master the techniques of the Zingers, his uncle is confident in the boy's talent and believes he will get used to it in no time. With this, he officially welcomes him to the House of Zerger. After their meeting, Celia requests to meet Leo in an unknown location. Suddenly, a girl randomly bumps into him, causing the both of them to crash glasses. The girl quickly gathers her books, apologizing for her careless rushing. She goes away, but Leo notices her card. He picks it up and learns about Chloe Muller, who is a freshman at the academy. Leo opens the door to find an annoyed Celia, who reminds him that they've got a lot of things to shop for, and he's already late. He apologizes as he unexpectedly ran into his uncle before coming here, beaming with joy. Celia curiously asks what happened. To answer her burning question, the boy commands the flames of the Zering her family, questioning if he's doing things the right way. Seeing this, she's in utter disbelief. The confident Leo managed to master the secret technique in less than a month. His incredible achievement causes her to fall in shock and leaves her wondering if he's even human. Later that day, the Sword Princess and the Forgotten Hero are spotting a ship docking nearby. Professor Anandu introduces himself as the instructor of the night class. He wants the students to board the ship immediately, as they will be leaving for Lumen soon. The journey begins with the students leisurely enjoying their time. Leo and Celia look like a couple, which causes a confident young fellow to release a comment that gets on Celia's nerves. This is an alchemist from the kingdom of Moira, and he's a merchant with everything to sell. He attempts to do business with the couple in case they need supplies at the school. Leo introduces himself by his student identity and explains that he belongs to the kingdom of Dad Thomas. This is noticeably surprising to hear because that kingdom took the difficult Western exam. Leo wants to address the elephant in the room, as he's finding the whole setting a little too strange. It seems too peaceful, even though Celia thinks that this is the standard treatment the freshmen should receive after clearing the exam. The boy turns his attention to their instructor while Thomas agrees with Celia's understanding of the situation. All of a sudden, the ship shakes as a gigantic tentacle rises from the ocean. It nearly crushes Thomas, while the rest of the students are begging for their instructor to intervene. Casually sipping his wine, their teacher mocks them for asking for help. He reminds them that the students of the Lumen Academy are expected to perform their best in times of danger, so this is a challenge for them to overcome on their own. They're up against the ugliest of the uglies. A giant kraken stares down at the students. Even in this tense situation, the Forgotten Hero maintains his composure and slices the creature's tentacle with his blade. Celia is also doing fine on her own, experiencing the fire attack of the Sword Princess. The kraken reacts with a water spray, causing Celia to get drenched. The monster grabs Thomas, who's shouting his mouth off. Seeing this, both Celia and Leo come rushing full speed to slice the creature down. With the alchemist's greed, he offers his shock. He was expecting the Sword Princess to do well on her own because of her reputation, but he wasn't expecting another student to be just as fierce. Poor Thomas nearly gets crushed by a frozen tentacle and shouts at the person who could have killed him just now. Chloe, the glasses girl that bumped into our boy, is commanding ice magic and holding the monster off on her own. She talks down on the alchemist, who is needlessly becoming a burden in the fight instead of staying behind. Thomas confesses that people like her don't give a damn about those weaker than them. Trying to help with another piece of tentacle crushed, we get to see the dynamic duo of Abad and Chelsea rising to the scene. They're still not done with their rivalry between the two clans. Still, the battle mage has her eyes set on our boy despite being enemies with numerous monsters in the lake, teeming on their way to the academy. The instructor thinks this is the perfect welcoming party for the freshmen. Enjoying his wine, he comments on the top performers, Chen, Celia, Abad, Chloe, Walden, and finally Duran Moira. The captains of each region are performing excellently against the threat. However, beyond them is a student that has overshadowed their performance, an unknown freshman with no commanding dominance in any region. His swordsmanship is the definition of perfection, and he's reacting as if he's predicting every attack. The instructor is glad that he's going to see the boy unleash his full potential in his classes. Anyway, the useless alchemist is quick to run out of his potions as they finally arrive at their destination. Hopping off from the ship, the instructor expects the students to get used to the monster treatment since they're going to deal with it a lot. It's time to explore the glorious entrance hall. The Lumen Academy's training grounds are extraordinary. Many spectators are hoping for the freshmen to put on a good show. The entrance ceremony is soon to begin. The Night Division is grouped by their instructor, who wants the captains to come to the front of the lines. The headmaster of the academy oversees the announcement, expecting great things from the hero candidates of this year. Ken emphasizes to the students that if they ever want to become strong heroes they'll have to risk their lives and always be expected to surpass their limits. Slamming his fist to the ground, the headmaster believes that if they can't do the bare minimum of what he just mentioned, then they don't belong to the prestigious institution. Then, a second later, he melts into a grandpa, acting like he didn't just intimidate the crap out of them. Kian points out and asks why they've all gone quiet all of a sudden. His radiant reputation and image as the brilliant swordmaster Slow SL gets tainted by the day. Next up is a speech from the freshman representative, a name that the first years are looking forward to. It's not Celia, Abad, Chloe, or anyone else. Only Leo PL's name is chanted, coming as a shock to even him. He quickly turns to the professor and realizes that he must have recommended him. Leo approaches the podium and addresses the professors and seniors with his speech. While this is going on, many students are bickering about the talks of this unknown student. They don't know what happened or who even is. The speech comes to an exhausting end as Leo PL is inquired about his goals as the representative of the year. He realizes that their goal is to intentionally provoke the finishers behind him. Leo offers his words in a very polite and professional manner, drawing attention from the other instructors. They think it's going to be a very reserved ceremony until our boy goes crazy and openly declares that he's ready to accept any of them challenging him for the position. This hostile and bold announcement provokes the top rankers, but Leo doesn't really care about who it is he has to go up against. With the announcement settled, the students go to their dormitories. From tomorrow, exploratory classes will elapse for 1 week. This is a special grace period for the students to take any class which will later help them decide 3 subjects to major in. The students are promptly advised to rest up so they don't face a first-day late class. Leo's room is designated right next to Thomas, who is excited for his first class tomorrow. They exchange a good-night greeting, and Leo collapses on his bed. His mind is busy wondering what he's supposed to accomplish in the academy, seizing his place in the best institution. He desperately hopes to find his long-lost hero record. The next day at the cafeteria, Thomas wants to share a seat with our boy, who doesn't really care and approves the request. Leo receives an annoyed visitor, someone he isn't familiar with. This guy is Duran from the Central Region, and he's here to confirm if the challenge he stated in the announcement carries any weight. Leo understands that his speech was provocative in its fullest. After all, it invited a stranger to take him on in an aggressive manner. Duran thinks he's some hotshot from the Central Region, but Leo simply doesn't give a flying and continues drinking his fruit juice. Pissed for being taken lightly, Duran lashes out by releasing a thunderous kick, sending the table flying. However, Leo's inhuman speed helps him rearrange the ingredients and reform his perfect cheeseburger. This man is the definition of class, as he made a meal out of the occasion. Leo provokes him, stating that he just couldn't ignore free food to waste away like that. Duran, on the other hand, is in the mood to kill this guy with his every word. He thinks the freshman representative is much weaker than he is, which his ego can't stand. Intervening in the fight, their instructor casually rests both his arms around the two students. He politely mentions their ranks as the representative and the captain of the region. The instructor is hoping they're prepared to receive due punishment for engaging in a fight on the first day. You can just see both their faces crying for help. Let's jump ahead and visit the first exploratory class of the KN department. For some reason, Celia is concerned about why Leo isn't around. He emerges at last, completely exhausted for breath. His condition invites Celia's attention because she thinks he fought with someone. Leo decides not to say anything for the time being. Class is about to start. He introduces himself as the instructor of the first night classes. Thomas notices that Duran is on bad terms with Leo already, while their teacher, A, talks about the three main powers derived from mana. The first being magic energy, the second is soul energy, and finally, we have aura. Of the three, aura is deemed the most difficult to handle. Celia adds that it's because aura requires losing mana fluidity during the conversion process. Her answer is spot on, as magic and soul energy tend to use mana in its natural state, but aura, on the other hand, absorbs the mana and converts it to suit the body. He demonstrates what an aura looks like and wonders if any of them knows how to use the processed aura from their bodies. Collecting her thoughts, Celia fails to come up with a reasonable answer. The freshman representative breaks his silence and explains that utilizing an aura's power requires the burning of mana. He's reached the right conclusion, as pointed out by the instructor, which then makes him ask about the most crucial aspect of the process of burning mana. Leo quickly responds, stating that it is stamina. Impressed by the boy's understanding of aura, A asks if he's ever studied the concept before. Turns out, he hasn't, which is yet again another impressive feat. A person who hasn't even studied aura somehow extensively managed to grasp its true essence. Deciding to put an end to the theoretical explanation, A thinks it's about time they do a little exercise using their aura. He casts a wave-like platform called the aura step. This fundamentally relies on concentrating one's aura power into their legs. A descends to the ground and excitedly mentions that the applications of aura are practically endless. Some of the other students experiment and spar with each other while Celia teases our boy. She's ready to teach him how it works so long as he calls her sister. Leo doesn't feel the critical need for her help, as he's fine with knowing the principles of aura. Noticing Duran on the side, the instructor thinks it's a good time to address the commotion seen in the cafeteria. Some students, like Chelsea, don't know what happened, and Thomas strokes her curiosity even more with his commentary. Both Leo and Duran are called to the front by the instructor. First, A confronts Duran and asks what ticked him off so much. After hearing Duran's dismissive reply, the instructor decides to offer the perfect suggestion. He wants the Central Region captain to square off against the freshman representative in a running competition, all to decide the student fit to lead the class. A outlines that both students are openly allowed to use their aura without any restrictions stopping them, which seems like the perfect advantage to Duran. The day of the competition is here, and Thomas, being the expert businessman, is busy hosting a betting system. The first contestant is the genius of the House of Moira and the master of the lightning aura, Duran. Facing him is the dark horse, without a special background, a man who leaped ahead even of the captains of the regions and became the freshman representative, Leo Plav. The students are expecting great things from the freshman representative. After all, they're extremely underwhelmed to find that he can't even use a simple move like Aura Step. They all think his position is unwarranted, and someone like the captain of the central region is more fitting for the role of a representative. Realizing that it's the perfect moment to start, A lays out the rules. The first to hit the finish line will win, and their opponent will have to accept the results of the outcome without fail. The race is about to begin. Even Celia thinks this competition is a stretch for Leo to win. Duran specializes in speed, not to mention his blazing fast lightning aura. Even against those odds, Celia is hoping for Leo to subvert everyone's expectations by pulling off the impossible. As soon as the professor yells, "Go," the racers blast off. Duran Moira cloaks himself with a lightning aura, confident that his speed would leave Leo in the dust with impeccable running form. Our boy was unfazed by the weak trash talk near the starting line, and as the crowd expected, it looks like the cool representative of the central region is going to make quick work of the track. On the other hand, the freshman representative is lagging behind. Leo started infusing a bit of aura into his feet to kick it up a notch. The audience quickly labeled him a bastard who scammed his way into getting the representative role. In the midst of the crowd, which unanimously opposed him, a lone flower cheered Leo on. Chelsea Luan's passionate shout of support stood out. Focused on crushing the opposition, Duran continuously lived up to his family's signature attribute: he really is lightning fast. Seeing him cross the halfway point in such an inhumanly short amount of time, Carr started worrying about his buddy. It seemed like Leo would be on the losing end if he didn't step it up, so the young man looked around the track. Much to everyone's surprise, he did not push to go faster but decelerated instead. Once his momentum was dead, Leo started running out of the track and into the walls. While it's true that Celia Zinger believes in him, there's just no logical explanation for his actions. He looked like an idiot as everyone watching was puzzled, confused, and lost. Leo, however, was focused on increasing the aura density in his feet. With multiple successive inhuman jumps, he fully went off track into the grass and finally leaped up into the stands. He turned around and watched nonchalantly as Duran stretched his lead with consistent speed. Leo's aura density reached its peak, the fiery force in his feet cracking the stands he was standing on. With one powerful leap, he launched himself back into the track with immense momentum. It was so staggeringly impactful that the jump left a small explosion in his wake, distracting Duran for a moment. From that explosion, Leo came lifting off like a red meteor, blazing through the rest of the track. The cheeky devil even taunted his opponent as he flew past Duran, calling the arrogant brat a slowpoke. The speeding meteor quickly reached the finish line, and his graceful landing was a sight to behold. Duran, watching a few meters away, was dumbfounded. His lightning cloak had been banned, and this was a clear and utter loss for him. Leo craned his head back and confidently smiled, he won. But the damage in the stands was quite heavy. It was worth it, though. The crowd, who had been talking smack just a second ago, was bewildered. They knew that whatever they just saw was no joke. As far as they knew, Duran was the fastest among first-year students, so for anyone to beat him was just absurd. Moreover, he lost to a kid who hadn't properly learned AA yet. Among everyone in the crowd, one of the few who caught what Leo truly did was Celia. She knew that he didn't use AA step, what he showed was a full-blown Phoenix step. Since Leo won, Carr and Chelsea were brimming with joy and full of compliments for their friend. The professor quietly deliberated on what he had just seen. Duran had used his specialty, lightning aura, to increase his speed, which was already expected, but the speed Leo displayed was still mind-blowing. Meanwhile, Leo Plav was significantly slower in the traditional sense, but he was far better at handling aura. He gathered and focused his fire aura on his feet to blast off. He created a single, formidable aura step in the process, and it was a flawless application of a simple concept. Being the sportsman that he is, Leo came up to Duran and offered his hand while telling him that it was a good match. He even admitted that if this was a long-distance race, the results would have been different. Still salty about his loss, Duran refused to shake his hand and even bumped his shoulder out of the way. The professor is positive that, among the current generation of disciples, a formidable hero might finally be born again. As soon as Leo reached the corner of his friends, Chelsea immediately showered him with compliments. He was so cool that she expressed her desire to train with him. Carr asked Celia why Chelsea was so into Leo and not him when the answer was so blatantly obvious. Since the class was over, Carr invited everyone to the cafe, even offering to treat everyone. Leo apologized as he couldn't tag along for leisure. Without saying another word, he quietly walked away from his clique. When asked where he was going, he simply